Welcome to Live DAF, your online DAF Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's DAF, Bava Kamma DAF. Hey, we begin right on top with the words Edim Zamimin. So, yesterday we had Rabbi Yehuda's Brisa, which gave us a listing of 13 Avos Nezikin, above and beyond the number 4 in the Mishnah DAF Beis. So he included those 4 plus another 9. Then we have Rabbi Yehuda who upped it to 24 Avos Nezikin, primary categories of damages. Now the question was, why did Rabbi Yehuda stick with 13? Why didn't he include those items in Rabbi Yehuda's list? And the Gemara told us one of the reasons is because Rabbi Yehuda is just discussing mamoin payments, actual payments for actual damages, as opposed to knas, penalties and fines. So then the question is, Edim Zamimin, says the Gemara, that's an example of a mamoin payment. So Edim concocted a story about a person owing money due to such and such event that they have witnessed, allegedly witnessed, and it turns out they were falsifying, they weren't even there, they were elsewhere. They must go and pay out that which they had intended on obligating this fellow. Edim Zamimin, the planners, the plotters. That's not a knas, says Rashi. And the reason is because knas can be defined in one of two ways, says Rashi. Either it's a set, established amount, like the 50 that an oines pays, mafata pays, or, says Rashi, when you pay more than the damage. Edim Zamimin fits none of the above, and therefore it's classified as mamoin. Says the Gemara, Edim Zamimin, that payment of mamoinahu, listen. Why isn't that on Rabbi Yehuda's list? Answer is, it is knas, it's not mamoin. Why? Savalak Rabbi Kiva. He holds like Rabbi Kiva's shita that these Edim Zamimin's payment is really knas. In fact, the Amar, he says, Ein mishal min al pi atzman, they cannot admit this type of guilt in line with any knas. It must be opposed by Bezdin. It can't be triggered due to their admission, so apparently it has a din of knas, and it doesn't belong on his list. Well, Isavel Rabbi Kiva. So if he's following Rabbi Kiva's shita, that runs us into another concern. Listni Trei Gavni Shur. So he should now have two separate listings of a shur on oxu damages. Because according to Rabbi Kiva, you end up with two types. One is Listni Shur Da'azik Shur, a shur who struck another shur. That's one type, one category. V'Listni Shur Da'azik Adam, in contrast to a shur who injured a person. Totally different system. This not, as we learned, Rabbi Kiva Eimer, Av Tam, even if a shur, it was his second time around, it wasn't second nature, he wasn't yet habitualized as a gorer. Shechaval b'adam, if he did it against a person, mishalim b'moisen nezek shalim. So if the person damaged the shur $50 and the shur damaged $100, that discrepancy, that extra 50, nezek shalim, he has to pay 100% of that. No discounts, despite the fact that it's just a tam, because the tam discount, the 50% discount, only applies when the shur was mazik another shur, but not when he was mazik a person. So Rabbi Yehuda now has two reasons to list shur if he's going with Rabbi Kiva. Shur that was mazik property, shur that was mazik a person, totally different, guidelines. Well, says the Gemara, it's not really absolute hatavri. Rabbi Kiva l'gzizei. Rabbi Kiva broke his power. Gzizei literally means his fist. He sort of canceled this chiddush. The Sanya, the Brisa says like this: Rabbi Kiva Eimer, Yochel af tam shechaval ba'adam, yishalem min aliyah. True, a shar tam who harmed a person, 100% responsible. But what about the other question? Does he have to pay min ha'aliyah from the owner's assets, or is it capped by the amount that the shur is worth, which is typically the system when a shur damages another shur? It's capped. The payment is capped by the value of the actual perpetrator, the shur. So if shur is worth 50, you can't go past that. But aliyah means he has to write out a check. So what if a tam was chayvel a person? Does he have to pay min aliyah? Even if it exceeds the value of the actual shur that damaged? Tamaloy mar yasaloi. Yasaloi is going on the shur. Migufay mishalim. The owner is only responsible in as much as the shur has that value within him. Ve'enim mishalman aliyah doesn't have to pay his own assets, meaning what exceeds the value of the shur. And this is even when a shur strikes a person. So at times he won't pay the full amount if the shur is only worth part of the damage. So basically, it's not an all situation. It's not an all-encompassing chiyuv. And therefore, Rabbi Yehuda did not, care to mention it as a separate chiyuv. The question was, there are two types of shur damages, two types of liabilities. When he's mazik a shur that works with one system, a tam gets a 50% discount. When he's mazik an adam, it's always 100%. Well, not always. If the shur is only worth 50, that's all he's going to pay. So therefore, he left that out of the list. Asks the Gemara, well, 1 second, what about ha'inus? Person had a forced experience with an isha, he has to pay 50 sela. Plus, he has to pay damages, embarrassment, loss of value, v'mafata, or he convinced her, v'mati shemra. He falsified a story about his wife. All these payments, the mamaynu, they're actual mamay payments for actual, harm. Listening. Why aren't these on Rabbi Yeshia's list? Well, says the Gemara, it really is, manavshach. Look, either way it's listed. It doesn't need its own listing because, all these elements of payment, if you break them down, they're really included in other items mentioned in Rabbi Yeshia's list. Inezek. Let's go down the list. Actual damages to the woman. Tunnelly. The Mishnah, the Bryce already mentioned. If a person harms another person, he has to pay nezek. Itzar, pain, tunnelly, it's also mentioned. Iboish's embarrassment, tunnelly, it's mentioned. Ipgam, loss of value. Well, that's also mentioned. Hainu nezek. Because, loss of value is nezek, right? The actual damage, monetary damage. So, there's no reason to go through all these. Once the Bryce already mentions nezek and tsar and sheves and boishes. So what are you asking? That the oines and mefata and shemer have a knas aspect to them as well. A set amount established by the Torah, the 50, the 100, right? Knasa. The knasa like a We've already said that Rabbi Yehuda does not include knasais in his list. Next question. We have other items included in Rabbi Chia's list, not found in Rabbi Yeshia's list. Hametame. He was metame his friend's truma. Hamadameh. He mixed truma into his friend's chulin. Hamanasa. He took his wine and poured it over dezara. Do I know? These are actual damages for which you have to pay. That's moment. Listen, include these. Well, manavshach. Either way, he has akshen and nikr shmei hezek. If these unseen, not tangible damages, you don't notice, you don't discern the fact that it's tameh or the fact that it's meduma or isser, yainesech, hezek shein nikr. If it's considered actual damages in the Torah, heshmei hezek, hatanali nezek. We already discussed nezek in the Brisa. He hezek shein nikr lo shmei hezek. If unseen damages are not considered mazik in the Torah, it's only midrabanan you have to pay. Well, havali knasa. Once again, it's just a knatz. It's a penalty. It's a fine. It's a punishment. The knasa l'kamari. He doesn't discuss these. But Rabbi Chia did include these. Why? Lei mokasav Rabbi Chia. Perhaps Rabbi Chia holds hezek shein nikr lo shmei hezek. Undiscernible damages is not called hezek v'nat Torah. It's only midrabanan a knas. It must be so. Why? The ishmei hezek. Because if it was hezek, then it's just another brand of mazik. Hatana lenezek, which was already mentioned of Chiya's Brisa. Why the repetition? Well, that's not a question. Tana hezekad the minkara, but Tana hezekad lo minkara. Perhaps it's called hezek minat Torah, but it's still a different type. You have the visible damage, and you have invisible damage. And therefore, they both earn a slot on Rav Chiya's list. So, our Mishnah Daf Beis has 4. Rabbi Yehuda 13, Rabbi Chia 24. I understand why our Tana, Daf Beis, Tana Minyana, gave us that number 4. I mean, we could count. Why do you say 4? Usually that's coming to exclude something. Only these 4. to exclude Limutid Rabbi Yehuda, to indicate that there are others unmentioned. Rabbi Yehuda's list. Rabbi Yehuda Tana Minyana, Rabbi Yehuda mentioned the number 13 to exclude, to indicate that there were others not included. Limutid Rabbi Chia, which alludes to Rabbi Chia's list, not mentioned, not included in Rabbi Yehuda's list. El Minyana Rabbi Chia Limutid Mai, but Rabbi Chia also mentions a number. Why go through a number? If you're giving me the entire list. Limutid Mai, what is he coming to exclude? Limutid Meiser Mafagel, person was Malshin. He snitched on he was an informer to the government, to the Ovid Kechavim, thereby causing his friend's property to be handed over to the authorities. Umafagil, or a Kohen who was engaged in bringing a korban and he did it the wrong way, he had a machshava that made it puzzle. So these are other cases of mazik which were not mentioned. Why not? For listening, so include them as well. Bishlem and Mafagel, I understand why Mafagel wasn't included. That's something unique, unusual. But Kashim, like we're not discussing karbanis. Ela Moiser, my time Leitani, what about the informer? Shani Moiser the Dibura. Well, that's only by way of words. We're not discussing damages by way of just, expression and speech. What do you mean? Well, Moiti Shamra is Dibur. The Dibur who? Uktani, it's included. Well, it's not just Dibur. Dibur the Isbe Masu. Over there, a Maser. It came along with an act because it only works when this fellow interacted with his wife as married. So it's together, Dibur in conjunction with Masa, and it fits into it belongs in the Bryce. What do you mean? Va'idim Zaymimin? What happened there? They testified, they spoke. It's an expression of words. Dibura, the last be Masu. Merely words. It's not accompanied by any activity, any act, any masa. Ktani, why is it on the list? Hasam says the Gemara. Well, guess what? Over there, Afagav list be masa, even though they didn't do a physical masa to harm the person. Rachman karya masa, the fact that they went ahead and implicated this fellow, made him guilty. The Torah calls that a masa. Do to him like he plotted to do, so we call it doing to his brother. Now, I understand why our Tana Daf Beis, Tana Aves, mentioned the word Aves, because Aves indicates Mechlal Deika Telad, there are derivatives. As we mentioned back in Daf Beis, Daf Gimel, Daf Ta. Karen has derivatives. Regel, right? Secondary activities which resemble the primary ones. Elo Rabbi Yehuda, but according to Rabbi Yehuda, Aves Mechlal Deika Telades. I mean, Edim Zayman has a Talda, all these things, they just stand alone, they don't have Telades. Ma'ini, what are the Telades? Why are they even called Aves? Rabbi Yavo. Kulan ka Aves l'shalom meitav. The reason why we put them under the banner of Aves to tell you that you pay the best. If you pay a piece of property, you have to pay from your best. My time and why? Asya, because we learned about way of Gzera Shava. In all these activities, all these 24, we have either the word Tachas or Nesina or Yishalim or Kesef, which allows us to connect to the halacha of Meitav. Which is discussed by, Rashi says, by Shein V'Regel. It says, Meitav Sadeh, you have to pay your best. So all these words allow us to connect it to the halacha of Shein V'Regel, where it says these Lashonos. So that's the point of mentioning Avos with regard to all these payments, because you have to pay Meitav. Okay, so in conclusion, we have our Mishnah, Arba Avos Nezikin, Rabbi Yehuda 13, Rabbi Chia 24. It doesn't seem to be much of an issue. Primarily, it's not an issue of machlokes. It's more of a point of, are we limiting it to, just a select few, or are we going broader, or even broader? Now the Mishnah continue. We have the four Avos Nezikin, Shoir, Boyer, Mave, and Hever. Lo yarei Shoir k'amar yar Mave. What does that mean? Maiko Amar, what does that mean? Amar Rav Zvid Mishvei de Rav Achik Amar means like this. Question: why does the Torah have to mention all four? Shoir and Boyer. Learn one from the other. Mention only one. Learn the other ones from that one. The Amar, the Mishnah responds and answers. If it would say, let's say, Karen, we can't learn Shane. If it would say Shane, we can't learn Karen. As we explained back in Daf Beis, Daf Gimel, each one has its own, uniqueness, in which the guilt can be attributed to that severity, and therefore it doesn't allow for learning others from that. It can't be provide a source for others, and therefore each one has to be stipulated separately. The Mishnah continues. What does the Mishnah mean with this line? Let the Torah only write two. Okay, I understand. I can't learn one from the other. But just stick to two. Let's say shoyer and maveh. Okay, so let's say we say shoyer is Karen. Well, Karen, he's a deliberate aggressor. Kamanas lahazik. Well, maveh. If maveh is Shane is not so. He's just enjoying himself. Well, maybe if it would say Shane, I would say I would attribute the chiyuv to the fact that Shane has anah. He's profiting off the other person's loss. Well, Karen doesn't have that, and he's still chayiv. So basically, take these two and use them as a common source, which cannot be extended and applied to others. And learn the other one from those. The Mishnah responds to that as well. Also, you can't learn from these because, let's say Karen and Maveh, they're living creatures. You're more responsible for them as opposed to Eish, who doesn't have that element. So basically, that explains why the Torah has to stipulate all four and tell you that they're all chayiv. Amar Rava. Actually, there is a way out. Suppose you combine any one of these together with bar. So the Torah only writes, Keren with bar. Now, you can create a common denominator which allows for everything else. Levar mi Keren, except for one, Keren. Mishum digla mifrach, because on Karen there's a problem. You can draw that distinction between Karen and the other ones. Malakulu shekin mu'ad mitchilasan. You see, in contrast to Karen, where it's a system, it's a process. First couple of times you only pay 50%. Then it becomes habitualized, it becomes a mu'ad, then you go up to 100%. That halacha, that liability in stages, so to speak, is unique to Karen. Shane doesn't have it, Regel doesn't have it, Bar not, Eish not, Adam not. Those 100% liability right from the get-go. So you can never learn Karen from the other ones. Right? So therefore, says Rava, in reality, the Torah did not have to write all four. We don't have to spell them all out, because really, if you combine them the right way, you can learn the other ones. And Rashi explains, for instance, let's just pick one. There's a whole long Rashi. It goes through all the variations. Just to stick to one example. For instance, you have, let's say we would say Bar and Karen. Let's start with that. We can learn Shane from them. Right? Because you'll say it like this. You're chayiv for digging a pit. A pit doesn't move, doesn't go anywhere. It's not an active aggressor. Ain't darka leilach lahazik, you're still chayiv. Certainly Shane, where an animal goes and eats, that's a moving mazik. Shadark leilach lahazik, certainly. You got to be careful and watch that thing, and you're responsible. Well, how could you compare Shane to Bar? Bar is unique because Rashi says it's called chilas hasiyas l'nezik. It initially was established as a potential mazik, as opposed to Shane. It's just a natural, function of the animal. It's not a chilas hasiyas l'nezik. It wasn't, intended as a mazik. Well, hold it. Keren yechiach. We can go to Karen and say, well, the fact that Karen is chayiv, despite the fact that it's not chilas asiyas l'nezek, he's not known to gore, right? He's innocent until proven guilty. he's still chayiv. So Shane as well. Well, Karen has an advantage over Shane. Kavanase lahazik. It's an act of aggression. Shane isn't. Well, Bar disproves that argument because Bar is not kavanase lahazik. And basically you're going back and forth because, the element found in one is not found in the other, so you can't attribute liability to that element. So you're going to be compelled to come up with a tzad hashava, common denominator. You'll say, what's common to both Karen and Bar? Darken lahazik, mamoinach, shmorase alecha, right? Same thing with Shane. So basically, you can go through the whole list like that. Combine things, provided you have Bar in there, because Bar is unique in the fact that it's not a traveling mazik, it's not a mobile mazik, it's not an active mazik, and still you're chayiv. Combine that with any other one, you can now include, you can learn from there, you can provide a source for the other mazikin. Except, says Rav, except for Karen, because as we said, Karen has a disadvantage compared to everybody else because he's a tam to start. So you can't learn him from everybody else. But otherwise you could. The other mazikim can be learned from each other. And continues the Gemara. Actually, there's another twist to this because back on Daf Dalet, Rashi says we don't know where this Tana is, but the Hagoyis Agra says Hu b'daf hakodev, back on Daf Dalet. Beginning of the Dalet and Aleph. So the Gemara over there had a svara to say that Karen has a disadvantage because Kavanas Lahazik, it's more difficult to guard him. But then the Gemara says, just the opposite. Karen is a more potent mazik because Kavanas Lahazik, it's an act of aggression. So in terms of the actual, behavioral aspect of the animal, it's a more severe expression of mazik. It's Kavanas Lahazik. So that's a chumrah. That's a reason for chiyuv. And therefore, I feel Karen Nami asked you. So if that's the case, we look at Karen as, a real strong mazik, then that allows us to learn Karen from everybody else. Because Karen has that advantage, Kavanas Lahazik, certainly is chayiv. That takes us to our question. So if that's the case, all you need to do is combine, put together the pieces of the puzzle correctly, then you can provide sources for all the mazikim. So why does the Torah have to spell out each and every mazik? There must be a reason for it. The answer is lehu to express its specifics. Every one of these mazikim has something unique. For instance, Karen. There we have that distinction between tam and mud. L'chalak bein tam l'moedes. He's 50% liable. He's 100%. Why mention shein v'regel? L'poitor mishusaram, to teach us that there's no chiyuv for shein v'regel if it happened in the street. The only chayiv if it happened in the person's private property, the victim's property. Why mention boyer? Lifteres hakelim, to teach you that if a kli was harmed by way of a boyer, you're potter. And that's something unique to bar. And that's why it's important to go through each one of these categories, because each one has unique elements, exclusive to itself, not found by the others. Well, Rabbi Yehuda says you're chayiv even for a nezik of kli in a bar. So why mention bar? Lift a bar is adam, because the fact that if an adam falls into a bar, you're potter. Why does the Torah have to mention that an adam that was mazik, a person is chayiv? L'chayiv bar dvar, because aside from the actual damages, you have to pay those four add-ons, the tsar, ripoy, sheves, boishes. That's very important. Why mention that you're chayiv if your eish burns? Eish lift a bar is atumen. There's something unique by eish. If it burnt out, down someone's house, and there's something, hidden there called tumen. The classic case is that it burnt down a granary in which were hidden some kalim. Tumen, you potter. And that's learned from a pasuk. So that's unique about eish. According to Rabbi Yehuda chayiv, even for hidden damages. So then, lasuyamai, what's the point of mentioning? Which halacha was introduced with the parsha of eish? Lasuya, to include that you're even chayiv when your eish, did something unusual, something very not typical. Lasuya lichacha niroi. Niroi is your friend's field, which was ready for planting, a plowed field, an empty field. V'sichsacha avonav. or would chart his stones. So basically, if it created some damage on this person's property in a very unusual way, it's not typical for a fire to burn actual earth or to char stones. So the point is, you're chayiv even there as well, which is something that's unique to meaning you would not have been able to learn this from the other mazikim. It's not something which is roy, which is typical, and therefore we need the parsha of Eish to introduce this aspect of chayiv as well. Okay, so bottom line is we had the listings of the mazikim 4, 13, 24, and the Mishnah explained why the Torah has to spell out each one of these 4 mazikim, and Rava expounded on it and said, look, technically you can get away with less, but as the Gemara explained, there's a reason to expound and to introduce all these halachis that are unique to these avos, and that's where the Torah goes through the list and expresses them separately. Okay, all the best to you, and Hatzlacha Rabbah.